This is what happens when your rescue comes with a price tag: your soul. Let's watch how a text to the wrong number became a love story written in blood and vengeance. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and turn on notifications, because what happens next will redefine everything you thought you knew about protection, possession, and the thin line between monster and savior. Connor filled the doorway. 6'3", CrossFit shoulders, $100 haircut, eyes flat and cold like a shark's. This was the man who'd proposed on a beach in Santorini, who'd cried at their wedding, who ran a successful investment firm and donated to children's hospitals. This was also the man who'd put her in the ER twice with accidents that the doctors knew weren't accidents but couldn't prove. "Who were you texting?" His voice was eerily calm, the calm before the hurricane. "No one. I was just..." He moved faster than she could process. His hand closed around her injured wrist and yanked her upright. White-hot agony exploded through her arm, up her shoulder, into her brain. Her scream echoed off marble walls. Connor grabbed her phone from under the tub. His face went rigid as he scrolled through her messages. "Who the fuck is this? You think someone's coming to save you?" He laughed, the sound razor sharp. "Nobody's coming, Maya. Nobody gives a shit about you except me. And you're making me do this. You always make me do this." He dragged her by her hair from the bathroom into the master bedroom, the room with the custom silk wallpaper and the California king bed and the view of the city glittering below like broken glass. "You need to learn," Connor said, unbuckling his belt. "You need to understand that you don't get to leave. You don't get to call for help. You don't..." The sound of the elevator arriving in their private foyer. Connor's pulse hammered in her throat. 6 minutes. It had barely been 4. Footsteps, multiple, heavy, purposeful, not the casual gait of building security or a lost delivery person. These were the footsteps of soldiers moving toward an objective. "Who did you call?" Connor's hand went to the nightstand where he kept his gun. "What did you do?" "I don't know," Maya whispered. The truth. The footsteps stopped outside their penthouse door. No knock, no warning. The sound that came next wasn't a crash. It was the sophisticated click of electronic locks being overridden, followed by the door opening with the quiet confidence of someone who owned every space they entered. Men in black tactical gear flooded into the apartment, silent, efficient, lethal. They didn't point weapons, didn't shout. They simply took positions throughout the space with the precision of a chess master moving pieces. Then he walked in. Nikolai Volkov moved through Maya's destroyed home like a panther stalking prey. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a 3-piece charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. His face was all sharp angles and brutal beauty, the kind that belonged on Russian propaganda posters or high-fashion runways. Platinum blonde hair slicked back, jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and eyes the color of ice over deep water. But it was the way he looked at Connor that made Maya's breath catch, like Connor was already dead and just didn't know it yet. "Get out of my house." Connor's voice clacked as he raised the gun, his other hand still fisted in Maya's hair. "I'm calling the police. You are Connor Pierce, head of Pierce Capital Management." Nikolai's voice was deep, accented, terrifyingly calm. "You've been under investigation by the SEC for fraud. You've also been reported 3 times for domestic violence. The reports were buried by your father's law firm." He took another step into the bedroom. His men didn't follow. They didn't need to. "You will put down the gun." Not a request, a fact about to become reality. "I'll fucking shoot." Nikolai moved. Maya didn't see it happen. One moment he was near the door, the next he was beside Connor. His hand closed around Connor's wrist and twisted. The crack was audible, organic, wrong. Connor's scream could have shattered the floor-to-ceiling windows. The gun clattered to the hardwood floor. His hand hung at an unnatural angle, the same grotesque wrongness Maya had seen in her own wrist minutes before. Poetic justice delivered without a word. Connor collapsed, cradling his shattered wrist, his face gray with shock. Nikolai released him like he was discarding trash, then turned to Maya. For the first time since entering, his expression shifted. The ice in his eyes didn't melt, nothing about him was warm, but something flickered there. Recognition, assessment, possession. "Can you walk?" His voice dropped lower, meant only for her, the accent wrapping around the words like velvet over steel. Maya tried. Her legs wouldn't cooperate. Adrenaline was draining away, leaving nothing but pain and exhaustion and the surreal impossibility of a Russian billionaire standing in her bedroom at midnight because she'd texted the wrong number. Nikolai didn't wait for an answer. He shrugged out of his suit jacket, Italian wool still warm from his body, and draped it over her shoulders. The scent hit her immediately, sandalwood and something dark, expensive, dangerous. The jacket swallowed her small frame, heavy and luxurious, and completely incongruous with the nightmare of the last hour. He bent down, and Maya's breath caught as he slid one arm beneath her knees, the other around her back, lifting her like she weighed nothing at all. She should have been terrified. This stranger, this man who'd just broken her husband's bones with casual efficiency, was carrying her out of her own home. But the fear that should have been there drowned beneath something else entirely. Relief, exhaustion, and buried deep, the feeling of being held by someone who wasn't hurting her. Nikolai's face was inches from hers. She could see a thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tensed as he adjusted his grip to avoid her injured wrist. His breathing was steady, controlled, while hers came in ragged gasps. "You belong to me now," he whispered, so quiet Connor couldn't hear over his own sobbing. Not a question, not a comfort, a statement of fact delivered with the certainty of a man who'd never been denied anything he wanted. Maya should have protested, should have demanded answers, should have done anything except let this dangerous stranger carry her past his silent army of men, past her destroyed home, past the life she'd known. But she didn't, because the monster holding her felt safer than the man she'd married, and that terrified her more than anything else. Comment now. Would you have sent that text? Or would you rather die than let a stranger save you? Be honest. And subscribe now if you're already obsessed with Nikolai. We're just getting started. Maya woke to impossible light. Not the filtered gray of her penthouse windows. This was pure, unobstructed sunlight pouring through curved glass walls that seemed to touch the sky. She blinked against the brightness, her mind struggling to reconcile memory with reality. The last thing she remembered, Nikolai's arms, the back seat of a car that smelled like leather and danger. His voice, low and hypnotic, telling her she was safe now. The word safe in that accent making it sound like a promise and a threat woven together. Now she was in heaven, or a very expensive version of it. The bed beneath her was obscene, Egyptian cotton sheets in dove gray, a mattress that felt like sleeping on clouds. Her left wrist rested on a pillow, encased in something that looked more like Tony Stark designed it than a hospital. Sleek black metal with blue LED lights pulsing softly along the edges. No pain. Whatever they'd given her had reduced agony to a distant throb. She sat up slowly, testing her body. Bruises everywhere, but nothing broken except her wrist. Someone had changed her clothes. She now wore silk pajamas in deep emerald that fit perfectly. The intimacy of that should have terrified her, but it was swallowed by the larger question, where the hell am I? The room was enormous, minimalist luxury, white walls, dark wood, abstract art that probably cost 6 figures. And those windows, God, those windows. She stood on shaking legs and walked to the glass. The view stole her breath. The city spread below her like a kingdom at her feet. 50 floors up, maybe 60, high enough that cars looked like ants, that clouds drifted past at eye level, that jumping would give you plenty of time to regret it before the end. The thought came unbidden. Maya pushed it away. A door slid open behind her. Black wood, no visible handle, operating on sensors or magic or money. A woman stood there, tall, blonde, beautiful in that cold Scandinavian way. She wore a tailored black suit and an expression of professional neutrality. "Miss Chen, you're awake. Mr. Volkov will want to see you." "I need to leave." Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I'm afraid that's not possible." The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You're still recovering, and Mr. Volkov has been very clear about your safety protocols." "Safety protocols?" Maya moved towards the door. The woman didn't shift, but her body became an immovable barrier, polite and absolute. "You can't keep me here. This is kidnapping." "You texted Mr. Volkov for help. He provided it. Now he's ensuring you're safe while your husband faces charges." "What charges?" "Assault, battery, attempted murder, securities fraud, money laundering." She ticked them off like a grocery list. "Mr. Volkov has been very thorough. Connor Pierce will never hurt you again." "You can tell Mr. Volkov." "Tell me what?" The voice came from behind the woman, and Maya's heart performed complicated acrobatics. Nikolai emerged from the corridor. He'd changed clothes, now wearing black slacks and a charcoal sweater that clung to his frame, sleeves pushed up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with tattoos she hadn't noticed last night. Cyrillic script, geometric patterns, something that looked like coordinates. He looked less like a businessman and more like what he actually was, dangerous. "Your wrist." He gestured with the coffee cup in his hand, those ice blue eyes tracking her with unnerving focus. "The surgeon says full mobility in 6 weeks, earlier if you comply with physical therapy." "You had no right." "I had every right." He moved closer, and Maya hated that she didn't step back. "You asked for help. I helped. Now you're here, safe, healing. Would you prefer I'd left you with him?" "I'd prefer you'd called the police." "The police?" Nikolai's smile was razor thin. "Connor's father plays golf with the police commissioner. His college roommate is a district attorney. The system you want me to trust is the same system that ignored your ER visits and buried your reports." He set his coffee down on the side table with precise control. "I don't trust systems. I trust results. And the result is, you're alive, you're here, and Connor Pierce is currently in a holding cell downtown with bail set at $5 million that his assets can't cover because I've frozen them." The room tilted. "You can't do that." "I can do anything." He moved to the window, his silhouette dark against all that light. "Outside these walls, you are hunted. Connor has hired a private investigator. He's filed a missing persons report claiming you were kidnapped. You're officially a victim, and he's the concerned husband leading the search." Maya sank onto the nearest chair. "You're lying." "I don't lie. I don't need to." He turned back to face her. "In here, you are untouchable, protected, mine. I'm not anyone's." "Then choose." He spread his hands, the gesture almost magnanimous. "Outside, you are prey. In here, you are a queen. Which do you prefer?" Maya looked at this beautiful, terrifying stranger who'd invaded her life and rearranged every piece, and felt the trap close with the soft, inexorable pressure of silk tightening into a noose. She'd escaped one monster by running straight into the arms of something infinitely more dangerous. And the most terrifying part? She wasn't sure she wanted to run. Stop scrolling. Would you stay in a glass tower with a dangerous man or risk going back to your abuser? Vote in the comments. Hit like if you choose the monster over the husband. No judgment here. And subscribe if you are enjoying the story. Days passed in the glass tower. Maya learned that luxury was its own prison. She had access to everything except freedom. A library with first editions in 12 languages. A gym with equipment she didn't know how to use. A kitchen stocked with food prepared by an invisible chef. But the elevator required Nikolai's fingerprint, and the stairs led to a door with locks she couldn't bypass. On the 6th morning, Nikolai knocked, actually knocked, like her opinion mattered. "Your wrist needs attention. The brace comes off for 30 minutes daily." He stood in the doorway holding a medical kit. "Doctor's orders." "I can do it myself." With one hand, he tilted his head, and something about that small gesture made her pulse kick. "Don't insult us both with pride, Maya." He was right. She hated him for it. The bathroom was an exercise in excess, marble everywhere, a tub that could fit 6 people, a shower with enough jets to simulate a tropical storm. Nikolai set the medical kit on the counter and turned on the water, testing the temperature with the kind of obsessive attention he gave everything. "Sit," he gestured to the built-in bench. "I'm not getting undressed." "I know." He retrieved a waterproof sleeve from the kit. "The brace stays dry. Everything else gets clean. You've been wearing the same clothes for 3 days." She had, because accepting the wardrobe that had appeared in the closet, designer labels, her exact size, chosen by someone who'd studied her body with uncomfortable precision, felt like surrender. Steam built around them as she sat. Nikolai knelt beside the bench, close enough that she could see his tattoos weren't random. They told a story in symbols she couldn't read. Cyrillic words, coordinates, dates, a double-headed eagle that marked him as a Russian bratva before he'd gone legitimate, or legitimately dangerous. He began with her right hand, using a soft cloth to wash away days of fear and sweat. His touch was clinical at first, efficient, but there was something hypnotic about watching those dangerous hands perform such a gentle task. Hands that broke Connor's bones, now cradling her fingers like they were made of glass. "Why are you doing this?" Her voice sounded strange in the steam-thick air. "Because you can't." He moved to her wrist, her forearm, the movements methodical but not cold, never cold. "You have people who could do this. I don't trust anyone else with you." The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Maya watched water droplets slide down his forearms, following the paths of ink and muscle. His sleeves were soaked now, clinging to skin that shouldn't have fascinated her, but did. "Lean forward." She obeyed before her brain caught up with her body. He gathered her hair, black silk, that she hadn't had the energy to maintain, and pulled it over her shoulder with surprising gentleness. His fingers brushed the back of her neck, and Maya's breath caught. "You are afraid of me?" Not a question. "Yes." "Good." He continued washing, moving to her shoulders, her back, the cloth warm and careful over silk growing transparent with water. "Fear keeps you smart. But you're also curious. That's dangerous." "Curious about what? Why a billionaire would care about a random woman?" Nikolai paused, the cloth still in his hand, his face inches from hers. Up close, she could see the scar through his eyebrow wasn't the only one. There was another, faint, along his jaw. And his eyes? God, those eyes weren't entirely ice blue. There were flecks of gray near the pupils, like storm clouds. "You're not random, Maya. You never were." "What does that mean?" "Get dressed. Something comfortable. I'll show you." 20 minutes later, she followed him through corridors she hadn't explored, her damp hair leaving wet spots on the simple black dress she'd finally accepted from the closet. Nikolai stopped at a door that looked like all the others. When it opened, Maya's world tilted sideways. The room was soundproofed, she could tell from the acoustic panels on the walls. In the center, bathed in soft light, stood a grand piano. Not just any piano, a Steinway Model D, worth more than most houses. But that wasn't what made her heart stop. Next to the piano sat sheet music. Her sheet music, the Rachmaninoff concerto she'd been preparing before Connor had forbidden her from playing. The pieces she'd composed in secret, hidden in cloud storage she thought no one knew about. "How?" Her voice failed. "I've had people watching you for 6 months, Maya." She spun to face him. 6 months? That's insane? Yes, He leaned against the doorframe, watching her with that unnerving focus. "I'll tell you a story. 8 months ago, I attended a charity gala, bored, obligated, wanting to leave. Then you sat at the piano and played Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor for 4 minutes and 37 seconds. I forgot what I was." Maya stared at him. "You remember the piece?" "I remember everything about that night. You wore midnight blue. Your hair was down. When you played, you closed your eyes like the music was the only thing in the world that mattered. And when you finished, Connor grabbed your wrist, too hard I noticed, and pulled you away from the applause. That's when I started investigating him." Her breath caught. "You've been, what? Obsessed with me for 8 months?" "Obsessed is your word." He pushed off the doorframe, moving closer. "I prefer thorough. I looked into your marriage, your finances, the hospital visits, the police reports that disappeared. I waited for my opportunity to intervene. The text wasn't an accident. The text was fate." His hand came up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. "When your message came through, when the universe put you in my hands, I didn't hesitate. I'd been preparing for this moment, waiting for it." "This isn't a rescue," Maya whispered. "It's a collection." "Yes," that terrible smile played at his lips. "You're the masterpiece I've been waiting to acquire. And now that I have you," his hand finally made contact, fingers tracing her jawline with devastating gentleness, "I'm never letting go." Maya couldn't sleep. The penthouse was too quiet at night, all that glass and marble swallowing sound until silence became a presence. She'd tried for hours, staring at the ceiling of her gilded cage, replaying Nikolai's confession. 8 months? Collection? Never letting go? She should have been terrified. She was terrified, but underneath the fear lived something else, something dark and magnetic that made her wonder what his hands would feel like without the gentleness, without the restraint. At 2 a.m., she gave up and wandered. The city lights below transformed the glass walls into mirrors, reflecting her ghost-like figure, brown skin glowing amber in the dimness, her hair a dark cloud around her face, the silk nightgown hanging off her frame like shadow-made fabric. She moved through corridors drawn by something she couldn't name. Maybe curiosity, maybe self-destruction, maybe they were the same thing. That's when she heard his voice, low, controlled, speaking rapid Russian with the kind of authority that made her spine straighten even though the words meant nothing to her. It came from his office at the far end of the East Wing, behind a door that was usually locked. Tonight, it was cracked open, just enough. Maya knew she should walk away, knew that whatever happened behind that door was dangerous to witness, was exactly the kind of knowledge that got people killed in movies. But her feet kept moving, drawn by the gravitational pull of a black hole. Through the gap, she could see him. Nikolai sat behind a massive desk of black wood, his face lit by the cold glow of multiple monitors. He'd shed his usual armor. The suit jacket was gone, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal those tattooed forearms. But it wasn't his appearance that made Maya's blood run cold. It was his expression. Empty, absolute, the face of a man who'd removed every trace of humanity and replaced it with pure, calculating purpose. On the screen in front of him, another man spoke, older, Russian, his face tight with fear masked as respect. Nikolai listened with the patience of a predator watching prey run out of places to hide. Then he spoke, still Russian, but Maya didn't need translation. She understood tone. She understood finality. Nikolai's hand moved across a tablet, his finger signing something with the casual efficiency of a man approving a lunch order. Except Maya knew, God, she knew in her bones, he wasn't ordering food. The man on the screen bowed. The call ended. Nikolai pulled up another screen, financial charts, numbers flowing in columns that meant nothing to Maya, but clearly meant everything to him. He made another gesture, moved funds with a swipe, and somewhere in the world, someone's life was being dismantled, asset by asset, account by account, systematic destruction carried out with the cold precision of a surgeon. This was who he was. Not the man who'd washed her arm with gentle hands, not the man who'd remembered her piano performance and retrieved her sheet music. This was Nikolai Volkov, tech billionaire and former Bratva lieutenant, the king of an empire built on fear and blood and ruthless efficiency. And she was standing in his palace, watching him destroy people with less emotion than normal humans show swatting flies. She must have made a sound, a gasp, a sharp intake of breath, something, because he looked up. For one frozen moment, their eyes met across the darkness, and Maya watched something extraordinary happen. His face transformed, the emptiness evaporated, replaced with something warm and terrible and devastating. The monster disappeared, and in its place stood a man looking at her like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. He stood slowly, moving around the desk with that controlled grace that made her heart hammer. Maya. Her name in his mouth was a prayer and a possession braided together. You should be sleeping. I couldn't. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. I know what you heard. He reached the doorway, and she should have stepped back, should have run, but she stayed rooted as he emerged into the hallway. The man who just signed someone's fate with the same hands, now reaching for her face. Are you afraid? Yes. Good. You should be. I'm not a good man, Maya. I've never pretended to be. Then what are you? Yours. The word hung between them, heavy and irrevocable. Every terrible thing I am, every sin I've committed, every life I've ended, it all belongs to you now, just as you belong to me. That's not... Her protest died as his other hand came up, cradling her face like she was something precious and breakable. You can't just claim people. I don't claim people. I claimed you, 8 months ago, watching you play with your eyes closed and your soul on fire. You just didn't know it yet. The confession should have sounded insane. It was insane. But standing there in the dark hallway with his hands on her face and his eyes burning into hers, Maya felt something inside her shift, some fundamental understanding that she'd been running toward this moment since the night she'd sent that text. Maybe longer. The things I do, he continued, his voice dropping to something raw and honest. The decisions I make, they keep empires running. They keep you safe. They keep you here with me, where you belong. I don't belong to anyone. Keep telling yourself that. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. But we both know it's a lie. You felt it when I carried you out. You're feeling it now. This thing between us, it was inevitable the moment you walked onto that stage. Maya's hands came up, intending to push him away. Instead, they fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed at her to run. You're a monster. Yes. His forehead pressed against hers, and the intimacy of it stole her breath. But I'm your monster, and you, Maya Chen, are my salvation and my damnation wrapped in golden skin and music. She kissed him, or he kissed her. Later, she wouldn't be able to say who moved first. All she knew was that it felt like falling and flying at the same time. Heartbreak checkpoint. She just kissed the man who ruined someone's life an hour ago. Comment if you think she's insane, in love, trauma bonding, or all of the above. Like if you'd kiss him too. Share if you're afraid you would. The kiss ended because Maya's phone, the encrypted one Nikolai had given her, buzzed against the nightstand in her room. She pulled away from him, breathless and shaking, her lips still burning. It's 3 a.m, she said. Who would... The screen lit up. Unknown number. Beneath it, a photo that made her blood turn to ice. Emma, her best friend, bound to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, her face bruised, terror stark in her eyes. and standing behind her, just visible at the frame's edge, was Connor's unmistakable silhouette. The message came through a second later. "Come alone or she dies. You have 2 hours. I'll send the address." Maya's world tilted. The phone slipped from her hand, but Nikolai caught it before it hit the floor. He studied the screen, his expression shifting back to that terrible emptiness. "No." His voice was flat, final. "That's Emma. That's my best friend. I know who she is. He has her, Nikolai. I have to—" "You have to do nothing." He pocketed the phone. "This is a trap. Obvious, desperate." "I don't care." Her voice cracked, hysteria creeping in. "That's Emma, my family. If Connor hurts her because of me, then Connor dies. Simple, certain. But you don't go anywhere." Maya tried to push past him. He caught her wrist, the healed one, and held her in place with enough pressure to stop her, but not enough to hurt. The restraint was somehow worse than force would have been. "Let me go." "No." "He'll kill her." "He won't." Nikolai pulled her closer, his free hand gripping her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. Because Connor needs leverage. The moment Emma dies, he loses his only card. He's not stupid enough to throw that away. "You don't know that." "I know men like him. I've killed men like him. Matter of fact, clinical. He wants you to panic, to run to him, to give him exactly what he wants because you're terrified and emotional and not thinking clearly." "Then what do I do?" The question came out broken, desperate. Just let Emma sit there waiting to die? No. Nikolai released her chin but didn't let go of her wrist. "You let me handle it. I have people." "I don't want your people." Maya yanked against his grip, futile as fighting a steel cable. "I want Emma safe. I want this to be over. I want—" She broke, just shattered. 2 weeks of terror and pain and impossible desire came crashing down, and suddenly she was sobbing against Nikolai's chest while he held her, his arms a cage and a sanctuary at once. "I know," he murmured against her hair. "I know." They stood like that until Maya's tears ran dry and something harder took their place. She pulled back, wiping her face. "Teach me." Nikolai's eyes narrowed. "Teach you what?" "How to fight back. How to—" She gestured helplessly. "Whatever it is you do. I can't just be helpless. I can't just wait and hope. If Connor comes for me, I need to be ready." Something flickered across his face. Approval, maybe, or satisfaction that she was finally seeing the world the way he did, brutal, unforgiving, survival of the most ruthless. Now? Now. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Come with me." He led her to a room she hadn't seen before, smaller, lined with weapons displayed like art, blades of every size, some ceremonial, some clearly functional. Nikolai selected one, a tactical knife with a matte black handle, deceptively simple. "A blade is intimate," he said, turning back to her. "More intimate than a gun. You have to be close. You have to be committed. There's no taking it back once you start." He moved behind her, and Maya's breath hitched as his body aligned with hers, his chest against her back, his arms coming around to guide her hands. The knife felt foreign in her palm, cold and purposeful. "Your instinct will be to slash." His breath was warm against her neck, raising goosebumps down her spine. "That's wrong. You thrust, up and in. Here." His hand guided hers to his own ribs, showing her the vulnerable spots on his body with disturbing casualness. Or here, he moved her hand higher, to his throat. Quick, decisive, no hesitation. "I can't." "You can." His other hand splayed across her stomach, holding her against him. "Connor broke your wrist, terrorized you. Now he has Emma. Tell me you can't imagine putting a blade in him." Maya closed her eyes. The truth was, she could imagine it. God help her, she could. "Good girl." The praise in his voice was dark, possessive. "Feel that? That's power. That's survival. That's what it takes to exist in my world." He adjusted her grip, his fingers warm and calloused over hers. Again, show me. She thrust forward, clumsy but committed. He corrected her angle, his hands patient and sure. Again. She did it again, and again, each repetition smoother, more natural, until the blade felt less like a foreign object and more like an extension of her will. Now faster. His voice dropped lower, intimate and commanding at once. Don't think, just react. She thrust, and he caught her wrist mid-strike, spinning her around so fast she gasped. Suddenly, they were face to face, the blade between them, her pulse hammering in her throat. "Your enemy won't wait for you to be ready," Nikolai said softly. "Neither will I." He released her wrist. Maya realized she was still holding the knife, pointed at his chest. One push. That's all it would take. "Do it," he challenged. "If you really want to leave, if you really think you can save Emma alone, put the blade in me and walk out. I won't stop you." They stood frozen, the knife between them like a terrible choice made physical. Maya's hand shook. Then she lowered the blade. Nikolai's smile was slow, triumphant, devastating. "That's what I thought." He took the knife from her nerveless fingers and set it aside, then cupped her face. "Emma will be fine. I'll have her extracted before dawn. But you," his thumb traced her lower lip, "you stay here with me, where you belong." "I hate you," she whispered. "No." His forehead pressed against hers. "You hate that you don't." Emma was returned unharmed 6 hours later, delivered to a safe house with a private security detail and no memory of who'd rescued her. Nikolai's team had been surgical, in and out before Connor even knew his leverage had vanished. But the message was clear. Connor was desperate, sloppy, running out of moves. That's when Nikolai proposed the trap. "A charity gala," he said over breakfast 3 days later, as casual as suggesting a movie. "The Riverside Arts Foundation annual benefit. Black tie, cameras everywhere. The city's elite. You'll perform." Maya's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "I haven't played publicly in 2 years." "I know." His eyes held that familiar intensity, the look that said he'd already decided and was simply allowing her to catch up. "Which makes your return even more newsworthy. Every media outlet will cover it. Every social platform will stream it, including the ones Connor monitors obsessively. You want to use me as bait? I want to use you as a queen making her first public appearance." He leaned back in his chair, immaculate as always in a navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Connor can't touch you in a room full of witnesses and cameras, but he won't be able to stay away either. His ego won't allow it. He needs to see you, to remind himself you're property that got away. And then what? Then we end this. Simple, final, terrifying." The gala was in 4 days. Nikolai gave her unrestricted access to the piano room, and Maya spent every waking hour relearning how to make her healed wrist cooperate. The joint was stronger now, but the muscles were weak, the tendons still adjusting. Every note was a negotiation between will and limitation. Nikolai watched her practice. He never interrupted, just sat in the corner with his laptop, conducting his empire while she fought with Rachmaninoff. Sometimes she'd catch him staring, his expression unreadable, and the air would thicken with unspoken words. On the night before the gala, he came to her room with a garment bag. "Tomorrow you'll need armor," he said, laying it on the bed. "Open it." The gown inside stole her breath. Deep emerald, not bright green, but something darker, richer, the color of old money and new power. The fabric was liquid silk that caught light like water, with a neckline that would bare her shoulders and a slit that would reveal leg with every step. It was a weapon disguised as clothing. "It's perfect," she whispered. "I know." He produced a jewelry box, small and black. One more thing. The necklace inside was deceptively simple, a thin platinum chain with a single emerald that matched the dress exactly. Beautiful, elegant, innocent. GPS tracker in the clasp, he explained, lifting it from the box. Microphone in the stone. I'll hear everything, see everything through the venue's cameras. If Connor gets within 10 feet of you, I'll know. He moved behind her, and Maya's pulse kicked as his fingers brushed her neck, fastening the chain. His breath was warm against her skin, his presence overwhelming. "You'll be magnificent tomorrow," he murmured. "Everyone will see what I've known for 8 months, that you're not a victim, you're a force of nature." Maya turned to face him, and the intensity in his eyes made her dizzy. "What if I freeze? What if I see him and I can't?" "You won't freeze." His hands framed her face with devastating gentleness. "Because you're not the woman who sent that text anymore. You're the woman who held a blade to my chest and chose to lower it. You're the woman who plays music like she's conjuring storms. You're mine, Maya, and what's mine doesn't break." The kiss was inevitable, slower this time, deeper, his hands sliding into her hair while hers fisted in his shirt. When he pulled away, they were both breathing hard. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice rough, "you perform, you remind the world who you are, and then we finish this." The gala was exactly as promised, excessive, elegant, swarming with the kind of people who wore their wealth like a second skin. Maya arrived in Nikolai's car, a midnight blue Bentley that probably cost more than her childhood home. The emerald dress clung to her curves, her hair styled in loose waves that framed her face, the necklace catching every camera flash. Nikolai helped her out, his hand possessive at the small of her back. He looked devastating in a black tuxedo, his platinum hair perfectly styled, those ice blue eyes scanning the crowd with predatory assessment. "Smile," he murmured. "Show them you're untouchable." She did, and the cameras loved it. Backstage was controlled chaos, musicians warming up, coordinators speaking urgently into headsets, the energy electric and anxious. Maya's hands shook as she sat at the piano bench in the staging area, running through scales, testing the keys. Her phone buzzed, a text from Nikolai, who'd taken his seat in the audience. "He's here. Southeast exit, security uniform. I have eyes on him." Maya's blood turned cold. She looked toward the stage entrance, could see the audience through the gap in the curtains. Hundreds of people in formal wear, champagne glasses catching light, the murmur of conversation like distant waves. And there, exactly where Nikolai said, stood Connor. He'd somehow acquired a security uniform, probably through his father's connections, and positioned himself where he could watch the stage. Even from this distance, she could see his smile. Confident, possessive, the smile of a man who thought he'd already won. He thought she was still his, still the terrified woman who'd hidden in a bathroom while he broke down the door. He hadn't accounted for what 3 weeks in a glass tower with a monster had done to her. The stage manager touched her shoulder. "You're on in 2 minutes, Miss Chen." Maya stood, smoothed her dress, and felt the weight of the necklace against her collarbone. Nikolai was listening, watching, ready. "I'm ready," she said. She walked onto that stage like she was walking into battle. The spotlight was blinding, the audience a dark sea of faces, but she found her seat at the grand piano, adjusted the bench, and looked up. Connor was still smiling. The conductor raised his baton. The orchestra swelled with the opening measures. Maya placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The music that poured out wasn't the delicate, controlled performance she'd planned. It was fire and fury, grief and rage. Every emotion she'd buried for 2 years channeled through ivory and strings and her own resurrected will. She played Rachmaninoff like she was exorcising demons, like the piano was a weapon and the notes were bullets. Each chord a declaration. I survived. I'm here. You didn't break me. The audience was transfixed. Connor stopped smiling. And Maya realized with crystalline clarity that she wasn't the prey anymore. She was the trap, and it was already closing. The applause was thunder. Maya lifted her hands from the keys, chest heaving, sweat dampening her temples despite the air conditioning. The audience arose as one, a standing ovation that shook the chandeliers. But she wasn't looking at them. Her eyes found Connor in the southeast exit, and the fury on his face was its own kind of victory. She'd done it, performed in front of hundreds, broadcast to thousands, and reclaimed the thing he'd tried to take from her. The stage manager ushered her off as the next performer took position. Maya's hands were shaking, adrenaline, triumph, terror braided together as she navigated the maze of backstage corridors toward her dressing room. The necklace felt warm against her skin, Nikolai's constant presence even when he wasn't visible. She almost made it. Maya. The voice froze her blood. She spun, and Connor was there, having somehow bypassed security, the uniform giving him access he shouldn't have had. He looked different, thinner, eyes wild, the veneer of control completely stripped away. "You really thought you could humiliate me in front of the entire city?" He moved closer, and Maya's training kicked in. She stepped back, keeping distance, assessing exits. "That performance wasn't for you." Her voice was steady, despite the fear clawing up her spine. "It was for me." "Lying bitch." He pulled something from his pocket, a small evidence bag filled with white powder. "You're going to come with me quietly. We're going to walk out of here, and I'm going to arrest you for possession. My father's already prepared the paperwork." Maya's blood slammed against her ribs. "That's not mine." "Everyone will know different. Everyone will know you're a junkie who ran away with a criminal to fuel your habit." He moved fast, grabbing her healed wrist. The grip was tight, but she'd learned to tolerate pain, to use it. "Nikolai's going down too. Kidnapping, racketeering, corruption. I've been building the case for weeks." He was insane, completely detached from reality, and in that security uniform, with his father's protection, he might actually pull it off. "Connor, please." She let her voice break, let herself sound small and scared, the woman he expected her to be. Too late for begging. He shoved the bag into her clutch, his grip on her wrists tightening. "Now move, or I'll drag you." Maya moved, but not the direction he expected. She spun into him instead of away, using his own grip as leverage, and brought her knee up hard between his legs. Connor's breath left him in a shocked wheeze, his hold loosening just enough. She grabbed the nearby mic stand, heavy chrome, perfect, and swung it at his throat. The impact was solid, satisfying. Connor choked, staggering back, his face going purple. Maya didn't stop, couldn't stop. 3 weeks of fear and fury and helpless rage poured out in controlled violence. She struck again, this time his wrist, the one holding her, and something in it gave with a crack that echoed Nikolai's own justice. Connor dropped to his knees, gasping, You can't." "I already did." Maya's voice was cold, foreign to her own ears. She reached into her dress. The slit that had seemed purely aesthetic actually concealed a sheath, and pulled out the blade Nikolai had trained her with. Small, deadly, perfectly balanced. She pressed it against Connor's throat, right where Nikolai had taught her. Quick, decisive, no hesitation. "Give me one reason," she whispered, "why I shouldn't end this right now." Connor's eyes went wide with genuine terror. "You won't. You're not a killer. You're changed." The blade pressed harder, drawing a thin line of red. "You made sure of that." Nikolai's voice cut through her rage like a blade of its own. She looked up to find him standing in the corridor entrance, but he wasn't alone. Behind him stood Police Commissioner Walsh, 2 FBI agents she recognized from the news, and, most devastating of all, 3 camera crews with their equipment already rolling. "Step back," Nikolai said softly. "Let them see what he tried to do." Maya looked down at Connor, then at the cameras now broadcasting everything. The bag of powder that had fallen from her clutch when she'd fought back. Connor, in his stolen security uniform, on his knees, her blade at his throat. She stepped back. Connor tried to stand, tried to run, but Nikolai moved with that terrible speed and grace, planting a hand on his shoulder that drove him back down. Not violent, just absolutely undeniably final. Connor Pierce. Commissioner Walsh stepped forward, handcuffs already out. You're under arrest for assault, kidnapping, evidence tampering, fraud, and about 15 other charges were still tallying. This is insane. Connor's voice cracked. She's the criminal. She's with him. He gestured wildly at Nikolai. He's a monster. Everyone knows. Everyone knows, Nikolai interrupted quietly, that you broke your wife's wrist, that you used your father's law firm to cover it up, that you kidnapped her best friend, that you just attempted to frame her for drug possession using evidence you planted. He leaned down, his voice dropping to something only Connor could hear, but the microphone in Maya's necklace caught it anyway. And everyone's watching. Connor's face went gray as he realized what had happened. The microphone in Maya's necklace, the cameras positioned perfectly, the entire confrontation broadcast live to the gala screens, recorded for every news outlet in the city. He'd been set up, perfectly, ruthlessly, completely. The FBI agents moved in, hauling Connor to his feet. As they led him away, Nikolai stepped close enough to whisper something in Connor's ear that made what little color remained drain from his face. Maya didn't need to hear the words. She understood their meaning in the way Connor's legs nearly gave out, and the way his eyes went wide with the knowledge of what waited for him. Men like Connor didn't last long in prison, especially when powerful men like Nikolai made certain arrangements. The cameras stopped rolling. The FBI agents disappeared with their prize. Commissioner Walsh shook Nikolai's hand with the familiarity of men who'd done business before. And Maya stood there in her emerald dress, a blade still in her hand, and realized she'd just crossed a line there was no coming back from. Nikolai turned to her, and the pride in his eyes was devastating. Beautiful, he said simply. He meant the performance, the trap, the way she'd fought back. He meant all of it. Is it over? Her voice sounded small in the sudden quiet. Almost. He took the blade from her hand, wiped it clean on his handkerchief, and tucked it away. There's one more thing you need to do. What? Come back on stage. He offered his hand. Take your second bow. Show them you're not a victim anymore. Maya looked at his extended hand, scarred, tattooed, deadly, and somehow the safest thing she'd ever known. She took it. She just held a knife to her abuser's throat in front of cameras and the police. Comment right now, queen if you're proud of her, crazy if you think she went too far, or if you're worried about what comes next. Subscribe to continue enjoying the story. The second bow was different. Maya walked onto that stage with Nikolai's hand at the small of her back, and when the audience saw them together, the applause shifted into something else. Recognition, understanding, the unspoken acknowledgement that they'd all witnessed something that changed the narrative. She wasn't the victim who'd escaped. She was the queen who executed justice. The audience ate it up. Social media exploded. Within an hour, #MayaChen was trending worldwide. Within 2 hours, every major news outlet was running the story. Pianist fights back against abusive husband in dramatic gala confrontation. Connor's mugshot was everywhere. His father's law firm was under investigation. His assets were frozen. And Maya Chen became a symbol of survival, of fighting back, of refusing to be broken. But as soon as they left the venue, as Nikolai's Bentley pulled away from the flashing cameras and shouted questions, Maya started shaking. It began in her hands, then spread through her entire body, violent tremors she couldn't control. I almost killed him. Her voice sounded foreign, hollow. I had the blade at his throat and I wanted to. God, Nikolai, I wanted to. I know. He pulled her against him and she went, burying her face in his shoulder while the city lights blurred past the tinted windows. But you didn't. You chose control. That's what separates us from men like him. Is he really? She pulled back enough to see his face. Tell me the truth. Nikolai's expression was answer enough. That careful emptiness, the one he wore when discussing business. Connor Pierce was involved in an incident at the county jail approximately 2 hours ago, a fight in the holding cell. There were complications. He didn't survive. Maya should have felt horror, should have felt guilt or remorse or some shred of humanity at the news of a man's death. Instead, all she felt was a crushing, liberating wave of relief so powerful it made her lightheaded. "Good," she whispered. Nikolai's eyes darkened with something that looked like satisfaction, pride, possession. "Good," he echoed. They rode the rest of the way in silence, his arms around her, her face pressed against his chest where she could hear his heartbeat, steady, unhurried, the rhythm of a man who'd orchestrated death and felt nothing but certainty. The penthouse was dark when they arrived, rain beginning to streak the massive windows. Maya moved through it like a ghost, still wearing the emerald dress, the necklace Nikolai had given her warm against her skin. She should have been exhausted, should have collapsed into bed and slept for days. Instead, she found herself drawn to the piano room. The Steinway waited where she'd left it that morning, a lifetime ago it seemed now. Maya sat at the bench, her fingers finding the keys, and began to play. Not Rachmaninoff this time, something else. Something raw and improvised, the sound of a woman who'd walked through fire and emerged forged into something harder, sharper, more dangerous than before. Nikolai found her there minutes later. He didn't tell her to stop, didn't worry about the late hour. He simply stood in the doorway, watching as she poured everything into the music. When the last note faded into silence, Maya lifted her hands from the keys and found Nikolai watching her with an intensity that made breathing difficult. "That," he said quietly, "is who you really are." He crossed the room and Maya stood to meet him. His hands framed her face, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones with devastating gentleness. "I need you to understand something," Nikolai said. "This isn't temporary. This isn't me protecting you until the danger passes. This is forever." "Forever is a long time for a man like you." "Then it's fortunate," he murmured, "that I'm a patient man." He released her face only to reach into his jacket pocket, producing a small box that caught the low light. "I'm not asking you to marry me because you need protection. I'm asking because I've wanted you since the moment I saw you play 8 months ago, and having you in my life these past weeks has only confirmed what I already knew." He opened the box. The ring inside was stunning, a square-cut emerald surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. Dark, beautiful, absolutely perfect. "I'm not offering you safety, Maya. I'm offering you power and devotion, empire and equality, a life where you never have to be afraid again, because everyone who even thinks about hurting you will have to go through me first." His eyes held hers, unflinching. "I'm offering you everything I am. Monster, king, killer, yours, all of it." Maya looked at the ring, then at the man holding it, the man who'd broken into her life and rearranged every piece, who taught her to fight back, who'd orchestrated Connor's death with the same casual efficiency he brought to everything else. The man who'd saved her not because she needed saving, but because he'd wanted her for months and finally had an excuse to take what he'd been denied. It should have terrified her. It didn't. Yes, the word came out certain, powerful, irrevocable. Nikolai's smile was devastating. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, because of course he'd known her size, and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like rain and victory and dark promises that would take a lifetime to fulfill. They went inside eventually, leaving a trail of clothes toward the bedroom, his tuxedo jacket, her heels, his shirt, her dress, pooling on the floor like liquid emerald. The night was long and fevered and absolutely theirs. Morning came with gray lights and the buzz of Nikolai's phone. He reached for it still in bed, Maya curled against his side, her head on his chest, the emerald ring catching the dim light. "Turn on the news," his associate said. "Channel 5. Nikolai reached for the remote and they watched as the morning anchor delivered the story with appropriate gravity. Connor Pierce, currently held on multiple charges including assault and evidence tampering, died last night following an altercation with other inmates at County Detention Center. An investigation is pending, but early reports suggest he was attacked by 3 inmates with suspected gang affiliations. Pierce was pronounced dead at the scene. Authorities are reviewing security footage. No mention of Nikolai, no suspicion, just another unfortunate incident in a city full of them. Maya reached over and turned off the TV. "Any regrets?" Nikolai asked quietly. She looked at him, this beautiful, terrifying man who destroyed her husband to claim her, and felt nothing but certainty. None. "Good." He pulled her closer, his lips against her temple. "Because you're mine now, Maya, completely, irrevocably, forever." "I know." She tilted her face up to kiss him, slow and deep and full of dark promises that would take a lifetime to fulfill. 6 months later, the headline was in every news outlet. Tech billionaire Nikolai Volkov marries pianist Maya Chen in private ceremony. The photo showed them on the steps of his estate, her in white silk that seemed to glow against her skin, him in a black suit that made him look like beautiful danger personified. Her hand rested on his chest, the emerald ring prominently displayed. His hand curved possessively around her waist. They looked like a fairy tale. They were anything but. Maya Chen Volkov was no longer the terrified woman who'd sent a text to the wrong number. She was the queen of a tech empire, the face of a foundation for domestic violence survivors, and, privately, quietly, known only to those in Nikolai's inner circle, the woman who sat in meetings where empires rose and fell based on Nikolai's decisions. She'd learned the business, learned the language of power, learned that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent was to be more ruthless than the guilty. She played piano still, charity galas, exclusive events, private performances for heads of state and power brokers, every note a reminder that she survived, that she'd won. And at night, in their glass palace suspended above the city, Nikolai would watch her play with that same intensity he had 8 months ago, the obsession that had saved her, the possession that had claimed her. "I love you," she'd say, because it was true, complicated, dark, and absolute. "I know," he'd reply, pulling her close. "You're mine, forever, forever." Outside, the city spread below them, full of people living ordinary lives, never knowing that the woman they admired and the man they feared had built their empire on blood and devotion and a wrong number text that changed everything. Maya looked at her reflection in the glass, successful, powerful, loved, protected, and absolutely, irrevocably his. She smiled. She'd never been happier. If you made it this far, you know this isn't your average love story. This is what happens when salvation is wrapped in danger, when the man who saves you is the most dangerous thing you've ever encountered. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me whose story you want next.